Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. After Zhou Yu left the Eastern Pavilion, Zhou looked at his hair. There were no drastic changes. However, he could tell he had more black hair now. There were times when Zhou wondered how his disciples would react if he used enough reversal cards and regained his youth overnight. Was Ji Tiandao handsome or ugly in his youth? Zhou suddenly cleared his throat and shook his head. I'm letting my thoughts run wild again. Master. Little Yuan hopped and skipped in from outside the Eastern Pavilion. Then, she sprinted over as quickly as a rabbit to Zhou's side. You called? Zhou looked at little Yuan. The little girl has grown much taller. Her appearance has changed as well. She had become more charming and beautiful. She would certainly attract attention if she went out like this. Change into some ordinary clothes. We're going to Liang province, Zhou said as he stroked his beard. Little Yuan was, naturally, delighted when she found there was an opportunity for her to go out. She quickly said, I'll get changed at once. At this moment, Pan Litian appeared in the Eastern Pavilion. Greetings, Pavilion Master. What's the matter, Elder Pan? Zhou was puzzled. Pan Litian had suffered heavy injuries during the battle with Ba Ma. He should be recuperating in his pavilion. Pan Litian said nothing. He walked up to Zhou reverently and made sure that nobody else was around before he kneeled on the ground. Zhou was taken aback. Although he could accept this gesture, Pan Litian's background made this situation somewhat special. He was once the greatest elite of the Clarity Sect and had many glorious titles. He was never a person who would kneel on a whim. What do you mean by this, Elder Pan? Zhou asked, puzzled. I have a favor to ask of you. Pan Litian cupped his fists. Let's hear it. Pan Litian nodded and said, I wish to plead for His Highness the Fourth Prince. Zhou was not surprised to hear this. When Pan Litian left the Clarity Sect all those years ago, he had been seriously wounded. Fortunately, he was rescued by the Fourth Prince. However, he had served in the military for many years, and the kindness should have been repaid. The fourth prince, Liu Bing, spent most of his time at the borders. He guarded his post well and is a respectable person in his own right. However, Zhou asked in a deep voice, why should I be repaying the kindness you received? Pan Litian was slightly taken aback. Zhou said again, moreover, I have no quarrel with him. Why do you have to plead for him? This seemed to clear Pan Litian's mind right away. It made sense. Liu Bing had no quarrel with the Evil Sky Pavilion. The Evil Sky Pavilion would not raise its hand against him. However, he had needlessly come here to plead for Liu Bing. Awkward. Zhou walked out of the Eastern Pavilion with his hands on his back. Pan Litian patted the dust off his garments. Hold up, you're the great villain. Do you even need a reason to attack someone? However, when he looked up, Zhou was no longer there. A day later in Liang province's city. Unlike before, Zhou now wore clothes made from coarse fabric such as those worn by commoners. He blended in perfectly. This could not be helped. See, Wuya was too cunning and had too many eyes working for him. He had to travel undercover. Even having the old age pavilion's members with him could alert the rascal. Traveling on the flying chariot was even more out of the question. It would send the rascal running. He needed to disguise himself perfectly. When they arrived in Liang province's city, Zhou and little Yuan were slightly surprised. There were no garrisons or ballistae. However, there were bloodstains on the city walls. Clearly, a fight had just taken place recently. The city seemed lonely and desolate now. Small groups of cultivators would appear in the skies every now and then. Thud. 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 A group of men charged through the city at this moment. They looked fierce and brutish. Zhou pulled little Yuan to the side of the street. The group was running to the top of the city walls. They must be the city's garrison. Master, they seem fierce. Little Yuan said. Don't mind them. The two of them continued to walk in the city. In its battle-ready state, the Liang province's city seemed desolate. It seemed too much to hope for to find an inn to lodge. Just when the two of them were looking for a place to stay, a middle-aged man appeared at the end of the street. He looked to the left and right before he whistled at Zhou and little Yuan. Old mister, the middle-aged man called out. Are you talking to me? The middle-aged man walked up to him carefully. He gauged the two of them and said, You're not from around here, are you? Little Yuan urged him on. Just say what's on your mind. The middle-aged man said, Liang province is currently in chaos. I've observed the two of you for a long time. I reckon that you need a place to stay for the night. Come with me. I have a place ready for you. Naturally, Zhou felt suspicious about this. They had just arrived in Liang province city. How did this man know that they were looking for a place to stay? Also, Liang province would most likely turn into the second E province, which was now in an emergency state. This middle-aged man seemed bold. Since it seemed fishy, something must be fishy. You can arrange lodgings for us? Zhou asked. The middle-aged man said mysteriously, It's a mess outside. You'll see what I mean when we get there. Zhou's expression did not change. He nodded. Lead the way, please. They had to stay here for a time anyway since he had to wait for Zhenghai and see Wuya. Shortly after, under the middle-aged man's guidance, the three of them passed through several streets and arrived outside a villa. The middle-aged man moved furtively and whistled at someone in the villa. Soon enough, two men ran out to meet them. The middle-aged man said, There's two more. I'll leave them to you. Aight. Another two. Another two? Zhou had some questions on his mind, but his expression remained neutral. He stroked his beard and said, Is this the lodging you found for me? There were two young men. The one on the left said, This way, please. Zhou suddenly felt that this villa resembled a black brick kiln. Zhou looked at the middle-aged man and said, Does your master go by the surname Shen? That's right. Do you remember now, old mister? The middle-aged man seemed excited. Shen Liangshou? Zhou suddenly had some vague idea about this place. Old mister, since you know my master's taboo name, you should watch your manners. If this were any other house, you would have been kicked out, said one of the men. Indeed, Shen Liangshou had quite a reputation. Since the cultivation world had a blacklist, it was only natural that it had a whitelist. The position at the top of the blacklist was indisputably taken by Ji Tiandao, the Patriarch of the Evil Sky Pavilion. If there were black, there would be white. The first on the whitelist was Shen Liangshou, who did good deeds wherever and whenever he could. He was the only one who could carry out silly, motiveless, and uncalled for good deeds such as this one. He was the only one who remained established in Liang province's city. The underworld and the officials respected him. This way, please. The man made an inviting gesture again. Zhou stroked his beard, nodded, and walked in. When he stepped into the villa, a faintly discernible and largely transparent barrier that resembled a huge bubble shrouded the villa. Zhou and little Yuan were quickly settled in. The man who led them here glanced at them before bowing and said, The master has said that anyone who enters the villa must have their cultivation bases examined to prevent any disturbances. I ask for your kind cooperation. Zhou glanced at the middle-aged man. He did not expect Shen Liangshou to be this cautious. It was one thing for him to do good deeds, why did he have to examine the cultivation bases of others? The man produced a gemstone from his pocket. When he saw the grade of the gemstone, Zhou knew that Shen Liangshou was not new to this. This gemstone was usually used by the major sects or the imperial family when they recruited their disciples or men. Nobody else would have any use for this item. Master, let them test mine. I'm worried they'll be scared out of their wits by your cultivation base. Little Yuan hopped forward. When the man who held the gemstone heard little Yuan address Zhou as her master, he said with a smile, "Scare us." Judging by the man's mannerism, he seemed to have experienced many things. Zhou stroked his beard and looked at the man. The man added, "Many elites of the Nether Sect have appeared in Liang Province City. I've never been afraid of them. Why would I be afraid of you? Little girl, your master should proceed with the test." He passed her the gemstone. Little Yuan looked at the gemstone. She found it interesting and said, "I want to get tested, too. I have a profound cultivation base." This gemstone was quite precious. A mid-grade gemstone's energy would be depleted once it was used 8 to 10 times. Also, cultivators could rarely fake the results of the tests done by these gemstones. The man said, "The old mister first." Zhou waved his arm. The gemstone flew into his hand. The gemstone buzzed and shone. A look of shock flashed past the man's eyes as he said, "Oh, it's the divine court realm. Forgive me for being blind to this." He was polite enough in all appearances, but his expression remained neutral. It could be mistaken as him being sarcastic. "Oh, what a profound cultivation base. I'm truly scared." In any case, a divine court realm cultivator was still not someone whom others could easily cross. He retrieved the gemstone, looked at little Yuan at the side, and said, "This way, please." Little Yuan was puzzled by this as she asked, "What about me? I'm not tested yet." However, the man ignored her. He turned around and left. When he turned around the corner, there was a grin on the man's lips. "If your master is in the divine court realm, how profound can your cultivation base be, little girl? You unruly and headstrong girl, you want me to test you, but I won't give in to your request. Tonight, I'll show the two of you just how evil men can be. Moreover, there's no need to waste the gemstone's energy." Little Yuan stomped her foot angrily and said, "Master, they're looking down on us." Zhou said, "It makes no difference whether we're tested or not." Oh. Shen Luangshu was at the top of the whitelist. He did every good deed imaginable. However, Zhou was still surprised to see him boldly remaining in Liang Province. It seemed like Shen Luangshu was not even afraid of the Nether Sect. At dusk, little Yuan supported her chin with her hands and leaned on the table. She stared at a mosquito flying before her eyes. She raised a hand and shot a needle-like energy blade to kill it. Whoosh! The mosquito was sliced in half. She giggled. Master, I killed a mosquito with my energy blade." Zhou opened his eyes to glance at her. Then, he shook his head helplessly. However, he did not reprimand her. After all, this was one of her daily methods of cultivation. That was how strange people were at times. Some would do all they could to work hard and learn but would never be good at it. Some people would only need to take a single glance and would learn everything. Little Yuan probably belonged to the latter group. Thump. 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 Someone knocked on the door. "I'll get it." Little Yuan ran up to the door and answered it. A middle-aged man in long gray robes entered the room. He swept his gaze across the room. He glanced at little Yuan. He did not greet them at all and only muttered to himself as he nodded, "Not bad." There was another man behind him. He was the one who wanted to test their cultivation bases earlier. The man said, "If you think they're good, Mr. Zhou, then, they're good." "Who are you?" Little Yuan asked. "This is Steward Zhou. He oversees the operations of the villa. I'll be taking my leave now. Have a nice chat." The man turned around and left. Steward Zhou cupped his fists at Zhou. "Old mister." Zhou looked at Steward Zhou and asked, "Where's Shen Liangshu?" Steward Zhou frowned. He mused inwardly, "Master Shen is at the top of the whitelist. It's normal for outsiders to know about him, given his reputation. However, he did find the old man slightly rude for addressing his master by his name. He did not show any of his annoyance as he calmly asked, "Old mister, should we be direct?" Zhou stroked his beard with a nod and said, "What's this about? Your granddaughter is of good quality. My master is willing to buy her at a great price." When Steward Zhou said this, there were men outside the room who could be faintly seen passing on messages. Creak. 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 There were movements on the roof as well. Clearly, they were being watched. When little Yuan heard this, she was just about to leap into rage when Zhou raised his hand and signaled for her to stand down. Little Yuan had no choice but to step back resentfully. Shen Liangshou is at the top of the whitelist. He has gotten to where he is today by doing good deeds. He has quite a reputation in the cultivation world as well. Why would he have a hand in these shady dealings? Zhou asked. Steward Zhou laughed and said, "Old mister, I'm sure that you're an experienced man as well. There's no need to play dumb. Nothing is simple in the world. Do you think that we'd let you stay here for free?" He had a point. If charity was all they did, even a mountain of gold and silver would not be enough. You're right. The lives of men are like straw, old mister. You're only in the divine court realm. You'll die by the hands of the other tribesmen sooner or later in Liang province. Why don't you allow this disciple of yours to go to someone better? You'll be able to enjoy a comfortable retirement as well. Doesn't that sound nice? Steward Zhou asked persuasively. Zhou sighed and shook his head. The utmost white is the same as the utmost black. I was surprised, that's all. Steward Zhou chuckled and said, compared to the evil sky pavilion, Master Shen merely chose a different path. Beasts live for food while men would die for wealth. They're fundamentally the same. Zhou sneered. You mentioned Shen Liangshou in the same breath as the evil sky pavilion? Do you think he's worthy of that? Of course not. Master Shen has always viewed the evil sky pavilion's patriarch as his life's goal. He won't dare to claim equality with him, Steward Zhou replied. Zhou felt slightly speechless now. I'm an idol, too? To think that I have such a fan. Steward Zhou continued to say, I'm telling you all this because you're in the divine court realm. Liang province is now going through an upheaval. The Nether Sect and the people from Lulan and Roli are lying in wait all over the place. With your cultivation base, the most you can do is to preserve your own life. Zhou nodded. What if I refuse? As soon as Zhou spoke. Bam. The doors were pushed open. Several cultivators came in. 2 cultivators carried a corpse and flew in the other direction. Zhou glanced at them. He discovered they were not weak. Each of them was, at least, in the Brahmin sea realm. Steward Zhou, who was standing before him, was in the divine court realm. His aura was also complete. Zhou reckoned he was in the peak divine court realm. Aside from these people, there must be nascent divinity tribulation realm elites as well since this vast villa remained standing amidst the chaos. Steward Zhou looked at them with a smile. If you refuse, old mister, I'm afraid that I'll have to take her by force. Zhou shook his head. He waved his hand helplessly at little Yuan. I commend you for your bravery. Steward Zhou was a peak divine court realm expert, after all. He suddenly sensed an aura from the old man before him. It was a majestic aura that not even his master possessed. He moved backward at once and circulated his primal chi. He was just about to make a move when little Yuan was already upon him. She was smiling. It seemed like she did not even use her energy. We're wrong. She's a nascent divinity tribulation elite. Steward Zhou exclaimed in surprise. With this, the cultivators outside rushed toward them. Bam. Before Steward Zhou could get a good look, little Yuan landed a kick on his chest. Her leg shot up. Like a cannonball, Steward Zhou was launched into the air, crashed through the ceiling, and rammed into the two cultivators on the roof. A hole appeared on the ceiling, and he fell back down through the hole. Bam! He fell before little Yuan. He was sprawled on the floor and could not move at all. Little Yuan was bored. She muttered, "So weak.